So I once asked Arik Asherman, do people know Rabbi Arik Asherman? Does that name mean something to anybody? Arik Asherman ran Rabbis for Human Rights for over 20 years. Today he runs an organization called Torah Tzedek, the Torah of Justice, and he's maybe the most incredible activist I know. He works a lot in Palestinian territories, but also helps the poor in several Jewish towns in Israel. He's an American who moved there. In any case, I asked him once why he's a rabbi and not just an activist. What's your Jewish drive? I asked him, and he said, I go back to the very beginning of the Torah, to the very first two words, Bereshit bara. In the beginning, God created. These words, he said, tell me that there is ultimately a structure to the universe. For 6 days, we go around acting as though the world is up to us, and on the seventh day, we remind ourselves that this is a created world, meaning it has a structure, it has meaning, and it even has something we might call justice. It's actually not very hard to see this justice. All you have to do is go take a walk in the woods, or go look at the ocean, or get out of the city and look up at the stars. You can also just look at your body. Our bodies are intricate, incredibly complex systems that somehow keep going, allowing us to walk and talk and eat and everything else that we do. These days, it seems very much like there is no structure, right? It seems like there's no justice. And we're even questioning truth, right? But I'm here to tell you that all those things exist. And actually, we each know inside of us what is good and what is not, what is true and what is false, what is just and what is not. Just like the universe has a structure and laws that cannot be broken even if you try, something inside of us knows the structure of human justice. We know that behavior has consequences. I know that whatever I do, whether it's good or bad, I know that it will have implications, emanations out into the world. I don't know about reward and punishment, not in this world nor in the world to come, but I do see how what I do keeps moving out there in the world and becomes a part of everything else. And I see that what other people do impacts me. I see how the actions of those who came before me really make me think a certain way and act and walk a certain way. I was in Jerusalem this past summer, and I had a conversation with a Palestinian man in the old city. We were talking about politics, and suddenly he stops and he says, "You and I don't decide what happens." Pretty simple. So I want to tell you something that I think is very important to understand, that we kind of tend to forget these days. In the eyes of our tradition, under the gaze of the eternal God, you are only responsible for your own actions. You're not responsible for what the person you waved the paper on does or doesn't do. And you're not responsible for the behavior or the choices of your elected representatives here or anywhere else in the world. You're not. You're not. When you come at the end of your days, which we can imagine on such a day, in front of yourself and are asked, did you live properly? That question is only about you. Today, we ask ourselves, did we live properly this year? When your partner was sick, did you show up? Did you take care of them? When your child needed you to help them cross the monkey bars, did you come? When your parent called, did you drop what you were doing and answer the phone? Were you there for your loved ones? These are the basic questions. And then there are questions that go far beyond this. Like, what did you do when your people committed horrible crimes against another nation? When your neighbor was stripped of her rights and her family, how did you respond? When you saw authoritarianism descend upon your country, did you act or not? In all of these questions, the answer has nothing at all to do with the result. This is very important. You weren't in charge of healing your loved one. You were in charge of making them chicken soup, or taking them to the hospital, or calling the doctor. Neither were you in charge of stopping the starvation campaign in Gaza, or of returning the hostages home, or of ending anti-Semitism, or keeping the nonprofit sector from collapsing, or protecting trans rights, or keeping the world from continuing to heat. You are not the person who's going to do any of that. No single person is. Of course, it's true, as Heschel said, that in a certain sense, all of us are responsible. Right? He said, in a free society, some are guilty, all are responsible. But our responsibility, I would say, is to do the right thing. Whether what we were working towards happens or not, that is in the hands of God. If you were standing in front of God right now, God would simply want to know if you did your part. Were you walking towards Jerusalem this year or not? And I don't mean Jerusalem, the capital of the modern state of Israel, that historical oddity. I mean Jerusalem, the abode of peace and wholeness, the place of goodness, justice, and truth. And you know, as it happens, in our imagination today, that's exactly where we are. We're standing in front of God. So we can ask ourselves, how do we do this year? Were we walking towards the city of wholeness? How much of it did we spend frozen, hiding, avoiding, delaying, compromising, self-flagellating? How much of it did you spend walking in the wrong direction? These are our questions today. So we're here tonight to correct course, not of world politics or of the USA or New York City. We're here to correct just the course of our own feet. The foundation of the world is a single rock that sits behind the western wall under that golden dome in Jerusalem. That's the foundation of the world. And that same rock is planted deep within our souls. There are those moments sometimes when we manage to get far beyond the appearances of this world and know the truth and see the goodness, and we're able in those moments to touch that rock. Then we're suddenly reminded we don't only have anxiety, fear, rage, disappointment. We also have a huge surplus of love. I think that one of our central problems, at least mine these days, is that we don't have an answer to the question, what do we do with our love? What do we do with our love of Israel that so many of us have been tending our entire lives? What do we do with our love of this country that we live in and this city that we walk around in? What do we do with our love of humanity, every single person? What do we do with our love of this earth and all of the creatures and plants and wonders in it. What do we do with it? What do we do with our love of ourselves in the face of what we perceive to be ongoing failures? In order to answer this question, I'm going to take us back to one moment in the history of our people where it seemed like everything was lost. So 2,000 years ago, there was a siege on Jerusalem. The Romans were laying siege to Jerusalem, and everybody inside the walls felt just like we do, which is to say, helpless. Inside the walls, the ultra-nationalist Jews had taken over. They were demanding that everybody join in a suicide battle to beat the biggest empire in the world. But there was one person in Jerusalem who read the map with clarity, and he saw an opportunity. He was the only person at that time who I would say knew what to do with his love. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he got his students to put him in a coffin and smuggle him out of Jerusalem, because that was the only way to get out of those walls. That's the only way the Romans let anybody out, is in a coffin. And so they smuggled him out. He got to the cemetery outside of the walls. And he got out of that coffin and went straight to the headquarters of the Roman legion and spoke to their commander. The rabbi didn't ask for mercy. He knew it was over, and both Jerusalem and the temple are going to burn. He saw that the Jewish people had lost their way, and he wasn't about to try and convince the Roman commander to spare the holy site where the Jews prayed for war and vengeance. He asked for something else instead. A place where the sages could study and create a new version of Judaism. Give me Yavne and its sages, he famously said. Yavne was nowhere. It had no significance at the time. It's as though New York City were falling and you would ask for Secaucus. Really, it still is that way, I guess. It was, but what was important wasn't, I take it back. It was, in other words, it wasn't the place that was important, it was the learning. And thanks to him, when the temple burnt and that chapter in our history ended, a new chapter began. Everything that we're doing tonight, everything, literally, just about everything, all the prayers, everything we're doing, it comes from Yavne. That's where it comes from. The entirety of what we call Judaism is from there, including the Talmud. The Talmud basically all comes from that moment in Yavne. These rabbis created a new Judaism based on studying and reinterpreting the old one, because the old one had run the people towards what the sages called sinat chinam. You guys can try saying that with those two words, sinat chinam. Sinat chinam means baseless hatred. That's what the rabbis attribute the falling of Jerusalem to, is baseless hatred. I think that we right here are Yavne, that we're tasked not just with keeping the flame alive, but with rediscovering the humanity and the revolutionary spirit within our ancient tradition. Because no matter who we may be against, who may be against us, our faith is not one that calls on us to starve millions, to bomb hospitals, to kill thousands of children, and to abandon our own captured loved ones to their deaths. This community here, and so many others like it, in New York, in LA, in Tel Aviv, in all kinds of places around the world, That's Yavne today. Today we, all of us in this room, we're the Ben Zakkais being smuggled out in that coffin, about to face the Roman commander. And tomorrow, we begin that exciting task of honoring our predecessors by reinterpreting the Holy Torah, so that those who come after us can embrace our tree of life, our Etz Chaim, and grow new branches and new leaves onto it. What do we do with our love? Bereshit bara. In the beginning, create. We invite it to guide us towards new ways of caring for one another and lifting up the image of God. We use this love as the foundation of our new temple. My friends, we are on a pilgrimage. One day it's going to end, and we're going to come in front of that shining rock of our lives and see ourselves. And when that happens, we need to be able to tell that rock, I spent my life walking towards you. I did what the prophet Misha suggested: act justly, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. I did that when I could see the fruits of my actions, and I did that when I didn't. I walked the paths of this beautiful, beautiful world with kindness and love for all of your creations. I didn't stop, even when I had no idea how to love, and everybody told me to stop. I kept on loving. I kept seeking the peace of Jerusalem with every step I took.